All right, let's talk weather here. A lot of people ask about the weather pattern. What are we looking at here? April typically a pretty active month across the southeast, certainly can be, and we're going to be quite the opposite here. Kind of oddly quiet. It has a lot of people going. All right, what's going on here? We're going to have a blocking pattern. I'll explain that, but it's going to keep us warm and dry. It's going to increase our drought concerns here as well. So let's go right to the upper air look here. Let's jump into it on Thursday. So here we are. We've got much of the southern half of the country in this kind of zonal flow. There's not a very strong ridge, but we're south of the jet stream, so that's where our warmer air is. The cooler air to the north. Now notice this low, this upper low, just off the west coast of California. That is actually going to be part of a pretty good trough here. And remember, when we're looking for the rain, the fronts, the synoptic systems, you're looking for these troughs. Now, at the same time, this is Friday evening, ridging, really building in the middle of the country from, the Mexican plateau all the way up into the even northern plains, an area that, just saw some heavy snow, North and South Dakota, pretty good ridge building. So move this ahead now into the weekend. That first upper low kind of fizzles, and you have this second strong upper low, still this pretty broad trough across the western half of the country. But what do we have? Big ridge, very quiet, and again, watch. This is kind of similar to, if you think about it, you're going down the highway, right? And you've got lanes that are closed. Traffic's still got to move, and think of your upper level systems as that. You've got these systems that are crossing the country, and the flow of the atmosphere is not going to just stop. But if there's this big ridge in place, this is kind of like our traffic. So imagine, these are lanes closed. These systems have to go up and over. They're being basically redirected, rerouted, and that's going to keep the most active weather right here ahead of this trough. Okay, so that's early next week. So this would be Monday. What day is that? We're working our way into mid-April. And this ridge, when you have something set up like this, it can often lead to, a period of really dry and really warm conditions for the southeast. And you'll notice here on Wednesday, there's a little bit of a shortwave trough here. Again, ridge in the middle of the country, another long wave trough across the western United States. And this little shortwave here across the Ohio Valley might be just enough to give us some midweek rain. Later global model runs, not ensembles, are starting to show hints of rain by the middle of next week. Again, not a very solid chance. And by Thursday, what do we have? Ridge sets back in place. So really, you're looking at a pattern that just favors a quiet setup for us. So we're going to go now to some modeling here. And this is the same time frame as I just showed you with the upper air look. Now notice this high across the southeast. Again, with this high in place, this is going to deflect these systems to the north. This is into the Alabama weekend. Again, you got a frontal boundary draped from New England across the Ohio Valley and back into the Central Plains, but it's not able to make a meaningful movement into the southeast. We just stay dry. Notice high holds in place firmly through the weekend. Now, it does begin to shift. By the end of the weekend and early next week, that high now moves towards the Carolina coast. What does that do? That brings back a southwesterly wind. Southwesterly winds often favor return flow. It brings in that moisture from the Gulf. It also starts to allow for some passage of these systems. Now, with that in mind, the upper levels, we still have ridging in place. So even though there's high pressure at the surface, you've got that upper level ridge that's still going to work against the progression of these fronts. So let's go into Wednesday. This is at 1 o'clock, and you got a very weak high here, just to the east of Barrier Islands, Georgia, and GFS hinting at a front approaching here by the middle of the week. Now, will it hold? We'll see. Typically, when you get these ridges that set up, if they're strong, they're going to hold in place for a while. We've seen it before. We saw it last spring. In fact, I believe we saw it in March. It led to some very, very active weather in the middle of the country because these systems couldn't progress east. They just kept hitting this wall, and that left us very dry. That left the middle of the country very active. And this is Thursday at about 1 o'clock, and you can see the rain, again, showing up sparsely. So if we look at the WPC, this is a look at the average rainfall over the next 7 days. This would take us through the middle of next week. And with that in mind, you're looking at it's not an ensemble, but you're looking at kind of the average of all the products here, and you're just not seeing any real evidence of good rain. So this would be through about the 15th and 16th of April. And you can really just see what happens with these systems here in the middle of the country. You're just going to see a ton of rain over Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Missouri, Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan. I mean, all these lows and frontal boundaries are going to be going over those same areas time and time again. For us, the concern really no measurable rain. Could we have a shower? Sure. I think it's trace amounts through the middle of next week, again through the 16th and 17th. Now that can change. We always watch these patterns as they do tend to fluctuate. I want to look at this here. This is the drought monitor. This came out last week. They do these once a week. Every Thursday they're released, and we break it down by category. There's no one in that D4 exceptional drought. We do have about 18% of the state in that extreme drought, and that includes areas like Crenshaw County, Covington County, over near Monroeville, that I-65 corridor as you head down towards Atmore, and then the Wiregrass, Houston County, Geneva, Dale County, as well as Henry County in that, and then Lee County as well over near Auburn is in that D3. Notice that hole in central Alabama. We're right now not technically in a drought, but the ground's been very dry. The soil has been very dry. And with this stretch of weather, I do expect that next week we will see 100% of the state in some level of drought. But again, things can change, but the pattern looks dry. So let's go now to the long-term temperatures. This is Friday at 4 o'clock. And remember, that ridging across the southern half of the United States, we are very warm. And Saturday, we'll see 80s from Raleigh all the way to Shreveport. And we're average highs this time of year. Again, you can kind of throw them out. We're in a transitional season, right? So you don't always have that average or that normal. We typically see a lot of fluctuation, but I expect 80s across much of the state through the middle of next week. We could even see some mid and upper 80s, Montgomery and points to the south. Now watch what these temperatures by Tuesday night into Wednesday. You're going to see evidence of that front we talked about. You can see the lower plains starting to show that cooler air moving in, again, favoring that front dipping into the south. But how far south does it get? A Wednesday afternoon, tight gradient, 65 in Nashville, 85 in Montgomery. Okay, we're ways out now, so these global models don't do very well this far in advance. But it is picking up on the potential for that front. And as we look ahead into late next week, could we see some slightly cooler air? It's possible. I have a feeling this front's going to stall just to the north of us here and render us relatively dry. And now these temperatures are kind of getting out there. You got near 90 degrees in Tallahassee, which is possible, but with 67 in Atlanta, the resolution when you get this far out is tricky. So now let's look at the extended CPC outlook, and what this product shows is okay. Are we going to be above average, and what is our confidence? This is pretty decent confidence, 60, maybe 70% confidence that we're going to be above average. And I would absolutely agree with that given the landscape of the current weather pattern. So this will bear watching, but suffice it to say, this start to April has been quiet. I like the fact that there's not a very active weather pattern because it typically comes with a severe threat. But it also means we're not getting the rain. So again, over the next 7 days, we'll watch that setup next week to see if maybe any rain can come in. I don't think it'll be very meaningful rain. It doesn't look like a strong front to begin with, but as always, it bears watching. So thanks for stopping by. It's your weather forecast discussion, and I hope you guys are having a good start to April. Had a great Easter. We'll see you next time.